Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to those of you who are with us today. I want to thank you all for taking a few minutes to go through this webinar with us. For those of you who've been here before, you kind of know the drill. For those of you who are new, I'm going to kind of run through some just quick items at the beginning, and then we'll get started. So the first thing that we always have to cover in all of these webinars is a safe harbor statement. So if you bear with me, I just need to read a portion of this. So this presentation will contain information regarding areas of the Cirrus Insight platform that are unreleased and still under development. Product demonstrations, illustrations, and prototypes shown in today's presentation may look different, be referred to under different names, and may function differently once released. We encourage you to make any and all buying decisions based on features and functionality that are currently available. In addition to that, I do encourage a lot of participation. These sessions are always most beneficial for our customers when there is a lot of interaction. While you are on mute, you can utilize the Q&A pod to ask questions. I will pause throughout. Okay, so what are we going to cover today? Well, today's session is on the user dashboard. And so we're going to cover a few things: what the user dashboard is, why is it important to know about it? What can you do with the user dashboard? How do you access it? What are the 5-ish main features of the user dashboard? I'm not going to say main features, actually. I'm going to kind of say the 5 features that we think are important for you all to know about in the event that you weren't aware of them. And then we'll do obviously some additional Q&A afterwards. So first and foremost, what is the user dashboard and what can you do here? Well, the user dashboard is a place for users to control settings that impact their sidebar, scheduling calendar views, as well as sync features. Now, some of those settings are available and configurable in the sidebar itself, but there are also features that are only, not features, but settings that are only available in the dashboard. And then the final note is that some settings that I'm going to show you or you may see today, you may or may not necessarily see in your dashboard for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, admins or administrators do control what settings are available to be configured by end users. So it's possible that you may not see that setting because your administrator chose not to allow you to see it in the dashboard. That's one reason. The second reason is depending on the plan type, right? So as you know, we have different sort of tiers of plans here at Cirrus Insight, and depending on which tier of plan that you're on, like a pro plan or an expert plan or expert plus, you may or may not necessarily see some of those features. And then finally, depending on the connections that you and or your administrator has within the system itself, the Cirrus Insight system itself, to external systems like Salesforce, or potentially on the calendaring side, like Teams, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, Google Meet, those kinds of things. You may not see the same kinds of settings that are available to you. So again, we're going to try to be as broad as we can and cover as many settings that are applicable to everyone. But if you have some specific questions, that's where the Q&A pod comes in. We'll gladly go through and try to dive as deep as we can into any particular questions that you might have. The last thing I'll mention is you can log into the dashboard from our website. If you go to cirrusinsight.com, in the upper right-hand corner, there is a login feature. And when you hit the login to Cirrus Insight, you will get directed to the user dashboard. Now, the other way to get to it is you can just go direct, and that's home.cirrusinsight.com. So instead of going to cirrusinsight.com and hitting login, you can just go to home.cirrusinsight.com and get into the dashboard. The last thing I'll also mention is that you don't have to use if you haven't been, let's say you didn't even know there was a user dashboard, or you haven't been using the user dashboard and everything's been working fine, you don't have to go in and utilize it. This is really more of an awareness presentation to let you know kind of what is available. And there might be some things that are interesting to you. And then again, you might kind of go through all of this and you might say, hey, you know what, I'm perfectly fine not touching it and not changing anything as we go through. So just wanted to again kind of mention that across the board. So as I said, you can access the user dashboard by going to home.cirrusinsight.com. When you get there, there's essentially a landing page that you'll get to, but it's important to understand that, basically all of the settings are configured in what I'll call the menu on the left-hand side in navigation. I'm going to jump into the dashboard in a few minutes here to show it live, but what I did want to kind of point out is that while you can, if you look here on the left-hand side, right, this is the sidebar. If you go in the sidebar under the menu button, you'll see a settings section. There are a bunch of different settings that you can enable, disable, and change based on your particular permissions in the system. Not all of the things that are available in the dashboard or all of the settings that are available in the dashboard are available in the sidebar. It's just unfortunately because it's a sidebar, there's limited real estate. And so, it just would be a really poor user experience to try to cram everything into that sidebar, which is why we do have the user dashboard. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right in. So this is the user dashboard. When you log in .com or home.cirrusinsight.com, you will be brought to the user dashboard. From the user dashboard on this page here, some of this is configurable. So depending on how your admin has it configured, you may or may not see it. It might not look exactly the same. There are a few shortcuts to different places where you can see things like analytics or settings right from the home page itself. Or you can go to the little menu icon in the left-hand side and you'll get a blade that pops out or slides out where you can go to those different settings. Okay, so the first thing I do want to kind of show you in terms of settings on the dashboard that are important is the fact that when you go into your sidebar settings, there are some specific sidebar settings related to the calendar scheduling features that we have. So if you are on a plan that has calendar scheduling, so really all of our plans with the exception of sync only or sync plus, you would have access to calendar scheduling. And depending on whether you have pro or expert plus, you might get some additional features. But what I wanted to kind of point out is, most people don't realize this, is that when you are in the sidebar and you're looking at calendar scheduling, you will see that if it's turned on, not only your calendar views, but you can see something called a colleague calendar section, and as well as a team calendar. If you don't know what that is, I'll explain that in a second. So you have 3 different sections that will show up, and I can actually go ahead and show you while at the same time kind of giving you an idea. You can actually see what I'm talking. You can access the calendar scheduling sidebar from the user dashboard. If you didn't know that, it's a little bonus tip here. When you go to meetings, and this is the meetings analytics page, which I'm going to come back to later on, you can click this little calendars icon and you will see the calendar scheduling sidebar view right here. So this is what I mean. You have like my calendars, you have colleague calendars, and you have scheduling or team scheduling. The reason why I mention that is because what most people don't realize is that as a user, right, you can actually toggle those settings on or off, right? So whether you want to, be able to see that section entirely, you can turn that off or on. And as an admin, you can do that across the board, right? So for the entire organization. But from a user perspective, if you don't really use it and you don't want to see it, it's clogging up the sidebar for you, you can actually turn that off. You can also leave it in there and you can opt out of colleague search. So what does that mean? That means that even though you have a Cirrus Insight account and even though you have a calendar view that's there, you can actually opt out of it and not let other people within the organization access your calendar views. This is oftentimes used sometimes by executives as an example. Sometimes executives don't want to be able to share their calendar views. It doesn't actually give you access to their calendar. It's just gives you access to the links that you could send out, if you will. Um, in addition to that, if you have access to team calendaring, and if you don't know what team calendaring, drop it into the Q&A and I'll cover it. But I'm going to assume that people know what team calendars is. You have the ability, there's 3 different options with regard to team calendars, right? And that is you can opt into team calendars, which means that anybody within the organization can create a team calendar where they can kind of put you onto a team and share that shared availability out to others. You can opt out entirely, which means, hey, I don't want anybody to be able to put me onto a team and share that out. Or you can actually request to accept and decline on a as needed basis. So for example, if I don't want to necessarily, I want people to be able to create a team calendar with me in it, but I want to be able to either accept or decline whether or not I want to be part of it. So if, let's say in this case, Ryan decided to create a team with Ryan and I would get an email that says, hey, Ryan's trying to create a team calendar with you in it. Do you want to accept that, or do you want to decline that? And I can go ahead and do that. If I accept it, then the calendar, the team calendar works as normal. If I decline it, then Ryan will get a notification saying, hey, you have not, Vinny went ahead and declined this, and the team calendar won't work as expected. So again, those are some pretty interesting options that most people aren't aware of in the sidebar, or sorry, in the user dashboard. So definitely something to kind of keep in mind to help you kind of navigate through these sections here. So that's team calendaring and the ability to, again, opt in and out, and colleague calendar, the ability to kind of turn that on or off as we go. The next thing I'm going to talk about here in the sidebar is this scheduling analytics, right? Or if you go under the sidebar here, there's this section called meetings. And this gives you access to the analytics part of the dashboard. Now, most people don't realize that we have some decent analytics in the dashboard, both on the user side as well as the admin side. And so from here, you can see that in the calendar scheduling, I can kind of get a sense for, how many meetings are being booked, what meetings are being booked. I can take a look at here. I can see if we have Salesforce Sync enabled for these events. I can go ahead, and if I click on this, I'm not going to, but if I clicked on this, it would actually bring me to the actual event in Salesforce. So that way I could see, how they match up and look at all of that. In addition, I can also see how many meetings are booked by each calendar view. So I can go ahead and I can take a look here and I can say, okay, just show me, how many meetings, that have been booked specifically for the, this particular meeting view. And so you could see if you had multiple, I have, as you can see, multiple different calendar views that I share. I can see, those different calendar views and how many people are being or are booking. So why is this important? Maybe I use a different calendar booking page for different audiences, or potentially I, use it for different marketing messages, and I can get a sense for which ones are, getting people to book time on my calendar more so than others. So it's a good sort of way to kind of take a look at that. In addition, the last thing that I'll also mention is that all of these analytics are downloadable. So you can go ahead and you can export these analytics that you see here, all of this information, and it'll download it right to your desktop as a CSV file. So that was the team, or the meeting view analytics that I wanted to share with you all. The next piece I want to share is specific to if you are on our Expert Plus plan and you use Email Blast. So for those of you who don't know, Email Blast allows you to go ahead and send a one-to-many email through your inbox. So it's not like a typical marketing automation tool where you send it out through like a Pardot or HubSpot or some of those. Marketo is another one, MailChimp, right? It's not something like that. What our tool does is it actually, Email Blast allows you to go ahead and utilize templates that are available in Salesforce and go ahead and pull them into essentially your own email box and send out a mass email to individuals one by one via your own email box. So what does that mean? That means that if I have a email list in Salesforce of 100 people and I want to go ahead and email them all something, typically you would see, right? You get those kinds of messages all the time, but you can tell that they're sort of generic automated messages. The way our tool works is it actually pulls that into your email box and basically sends it one by one to each individual. So it's actually in your sent folder. It's coming from you. It's not coming from, MailChimp on behalf of Vinny. It's actually coming from Vinny and from Vinny's email box. One of the things that has people have asked for is the ability to sort of customize the signatures, because they have maybe potentially different signatures that they want to utilize for different email blasts. And so email signatures is something that we built out. You can control those email signatures right here in the dashboard. And you can have as many signatures as you want. You can kind of see I have one here that's listed, and I made this one as the default. And so at the bottom of those emails, right, I would have this specific, signature. Now, this is just the same way as your regular signature works in, let's say, Outlook or in Gmail. It works exactly the same way, but this is specific to those email blasts. So that way we're pulling in the appropriate signature that you might want. And again, you can create as many of these as you want, and they're all configurable from the user dashboard under Cirrus signatures. Once again, this is connected to Email Blast. If you don't use Email Blast or you don't have access to it, you wouldn't see this particular section. So I just wanted to call that out because it's a relatively new enhancement to the Email Blast feature that people have been asking for, and I wanted to make sure that you all were aware. Okay, so the next thing, and this is where I'll try to answer some of the other questions that have come up so far, specifically around Salesforce integration. So one of the things that I'll again reiterate here is what you have the ability to control in terms of the settings here are going to be determined by what the admin allows you to control. And what I mean by that is, as an admin, right? When I go in and I'm controlling these settings, for a lot of these settings, I have the ability to check a box that says, allow users to modify this setting. So I basically can control the default setting or the setting that I want everybody to use, and I can just make that sort of locked in for everyone. Or I could say, okay, this is going to be the default one, but if users need to modify it, they can modify it. So again, just wanted to kind of share that what you're going to see in the dashboard in a moment here, is configured that way, or I'm only seeing what I'm able to see based on how my system is configured or my admin configured my system. So again, as a user, I can come in here and I can, go ahead under Salesforce configuration, and I could say, hey, you know what? I want to go ahead and combine related lists. So instead of seeing related lists for contacts in the sidebar and then having to go ahead and click over to the accounts to see the account related lists, just show them all together in one related list, even on the contact. So if the contact is related to this account, show me the combined related list. I don't have to, I can separate those, but that's like an example of a feature that's there. I'm not going to go through, the intent of this session is not to go through every single feature that is available, but just to show you that there are different features that you have the ability potentially to go ahead and change. And if you don't have the ability to modify them, it won't allow you to. So for example, here in our org, we want all emails that come in that we are going to file for our internal organization that have attachments. We want those attachments to be filed with that email. Some organizations don't want that. Some organizations, have a different mechanism for filing attachments, in general. So as a result, they might not have this on. But this is enabled, this is a good example of a setting that's enabled at the admin level, but I don't have the ability to modify it as an individual user. So, and it tells me that right here, right? This is enabled and it's admin managed. So again, just wanted to kind of show you that there are settings here that you can modify. For example, search results, right? Like when I search in the sidebar, what are the different results that I get, right? We have 161 different things that could show up there, but maybe I only want to search for accounts and contacts, and that's it, right? Those are the only two things I really care about. Or maybe there's a custom object that you care about, and you want to only see those, right? You can sort of modify that and really customize the experience in the sidebar as much as you would like. Same thing with work tab objects. That's something that I can customize because my admin has allowed me to go ahead and do that. And when I say admin has allowed me to do that, this is kind of what I wanted to show you before, right? There are these checkbox on the admin dashboard, which we covered the last session, that an admin can check and say, yes, allow the users to modify this specific thing. So if I go to attachments, you'll notice this is what I was mentioning before. Auto file attachments with quick file, that was enabled on the user dashboard, but you notice because there is no checkbox here that says users can modify, then on my side, right, I don't have the ability to modify it. However, right, when I come over here, and it's going to take a second because it's going pulling everything, but because users can modify is checked, I have the ability to modify those lists or those settings that are listed here. So again, something just for you all to kind of be aware of. I think it's super important and helpful. The question that came up before around how the sidebar in general works, um, and I might even save this because I want to go into the sidebar to show it to you, just to give you some perspective. Depending on how you have things set up, you'll be able to see both the contact and the account. There are two tabs over the top, and again, I'll show you this in at the end of the session once we're done, and you should be able to access both of them right from there. So I'll show you that in a minute. All right, last thing before we kind of open it up to more questions that I wanted to share is the other analytics that we have. So if you are a sync user, we have some pretty robust analytics, both at the admin level as well as at the user level. Specific to the user level, I can see when I go to, if I'm using calendar and email sync as an example, if I go to the calendar sync, I can see all of the events that have sync. Now, this is different than what I showed you before. Before I showed you, those were for calendar scheduling, right? For the personal scheduling pages, when people book time on your calendar, that's what that was. That was only showing you, the meetings that were booked via your meeting link. This is your sync logs, right? So basically, every single event that's on your calendar, whether it was booked via a scheduling page or not, if you were syncing it, it's going to show up here. And again, if it's synced to Salesforce, you're going to see that Salesforce event ID where you can click on it and it'll bring you to that specific event. And you can see that here. In addition, you can see if there are any failures, and you'll be able to see what the issues are if there were failures. So if there was a failure specifically, you'd be able to kind of see what those failures are. And again, you can see that for both calendar, you can see that for email, and also for task if you use task sync as well. So you can kind of see what those are. And again, all of these analytics are exportable right through the dashboard as well. And again, right, so I just showed you calendar, email, those analytics are available there. And then what I showed you earlier was under calendar scheduling, and that's what these analytics are. So that's essentially what I wanted to cover overall in terms of some of the key features that you might not be aware of. Another one that's kind of a hidden gem is what I showed you earlier, right? This little sidebar where you can access right from the dashboard your calendar scheduling tab that you would have. So I'm going to go ahead and pause there, see if there are any other questions while I bring up my sidebar to see if I can answer some of those other questions that came up before. So if you have any other questions, feel free to go ahead and drop them into the Q&A. If not, it's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just answer another question real quick. So here I am, I'm in my inbox. This is an email that's already been filed. I'm pretty sure the question was, can I default this instead of contacts coming up, can I see accounts instead? The short answer to that is no, you cannot. What we show is we show the contacts that are listed here. Now, if you use like person accounts or things of that nature, that might be different. We don't use person accounts, so that I think the only time that it would be different. But you can, when I click on this particular contact, this is what I was talking about with regard to the contact and the account, being able to see the contact itself as well as the account. I can sort of toggle between the two right here. And as I mentioned earlier, because we have the combine related lists, you'll see that these related lists are the same. And the reason why is because we use the combine. So we show the related lists for both, even though technically, it's possible that, maybe the G2 review related list that's listed here, is really an account related list as opposed to a contact related list. So just as an FYI, I just wanted to kind of share that with you. There's another question that came in. Can you add email blasts for only a certain amount of users? So I'm assuming you're asking like, hey, we have, I don't know, 50 users that use the Cirrus Insight system. I only want to provide email blast to 10 of them, right? I want to purchase email blast for 10 of them. Sure, there's definitely a way to do that. If you have specific questions, reach out to me, or if you have a dedicated customer success manager, you can reach out to them and we'll get you in contact with the right people so that we know exactly how that's going to work, depending on your organization, depending on what plan you're on. Like if you're on the Expert Plus plan, as an example, it's included for everybody. You can actually turn it on or off for specific individuals. So you don't have to have it for everyone. If you are on the pro plan and you want to buy it for just 10 of the people that are on your team, you can do that, but we probably have to put you onto a child org, so that way we can have a different license type for those individuals. So again, we can figure that out. We can work through it and help you understand what the best way to handle that is. But yes, in short, you can. Okay, and there's another question here. Can an admin see which users are using their sidebar? So as an admin in your admin dashboard, if you go to manage users, if you don't see, there is a column called last sidebar login. If it's not there, you can click this little icon that's right here, and it would be you just got to check it, turn it on, turn it off. You'd be able to see the last time they logged into the sidebar. That doesn't necessarily tell you when the last time they used it or who was using it. All right. Any other questions? If you don't have any other questions, feel free to drop. Again, we'll go ahead and send out the recording later today, tomorrow. All right, doesn't look like there are any additional questions, but thank you all for taking time to join us today. Really appreciate it. And we will see you on the next one. Have a great day, everybody.